337 days. That's how many days that I've been making art every single day. And it hasn't gone exactly the way that I thought. And I don't really know if I could consider it to be a success. So a year ago, I started this journey of trying to do art every day because I was really in a deep rut where I didn't really even enjoy making art. I didn't know if I wanted to keep making art. And it's strange. I'm about to cross this finish line of the goal I set of doing it every day for a year. And in a lot of ways, I'm in the exact same spot where I started. One thing that jumped out at me is how reluctantly and almost against my will doing Inktober actually has totally revived my painting practice and taught me some really valuable lessons. And I just want to share this with you in case you find yourself in a similar position and it could help you. About 9 months ago, I was painting out of my mind. I was doing some of the coolest creative projects that I've done. I started a lot of really big paintings. I was painting larger than I've ever painted before. I was doing just a lot of really cool stuff, and I would have said that there was a huge and immediate and meaningful payoff to doing art every day because I was experimenting. I was trying new things with new palettes. I was getting a lot of plein air done, and just gradually over time, things started to really go the wrong direction. And I started to kind of do less and less instead of more and more. And so one thing that I found myself doing is kind of putting off art until the end of the day because I had lost my enjoyment. Really, the only thing that was keeping me going was doing art as a result of this challenge that I set myself, and kind of feeling like I was a little bit obligated to you guys on YouTube world because I, on January 1, started this process and I had made several videos about doing art every day for a month and then doing art every day for a couple months and trying to keep you guys involved. And I'm a big believer, I've always been a big believer of doing art, in a way that's consistent and in a way that's not heavily relying on your feelings and your emotions, but just working on your craft and building your skills. This is how I learned how to paint in the first place. And so, I was stuck or challenged or obligated with this goal that I set of doing art every day. And in a way, I had sort of set a minimum threshold of just doing art. Art material has to touch art material, like pencil has to touch paper, but no minimum, no I have to draw for 30 minutes or I have to, paint for an hour or nothing. It has to be plein air. I wanted to make it something that I could do every day, given different circumstances. For instance, if I'm sick or if I'm traveling, I just didn't want it to be too hard. But what happened is because the bar was low, instead of overcoming that, I started to kind of gravitate toward just doing the bare minimum required, which after several months looked like me not even doing what I really wanted to do in the first place. It looked like me using this anything goes sketchbook, and I would often just sketch for a few minutes, and I would draw my foot, or I would draw the chair that's here in my living room, or I would draw Harry, my dog. And a lot of times I would just use a pencil. And the thing is that I don't really like pencil drawing. And while this is building my craft and, basically mentally I'm able to check the box okay, technically I did art today, but it's not really what I had in mind when I set this goal, right? 9 months ago, when I was coming up with these concepts for large paintings and I was making sculptures and I was going plein air a lot and turning plein air paintings into studio paintings, that's what I envisioned. But I found myself 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months down the road, just waiting until 10, 11 o'clock at night, grabbing this sketchbook and drawing my foot for a couple minutes and then going to bed. And it's technically I'm meeting the requirement of my goal, but also like the spirit of the goal is not being met. And I'm just disliking art more and more. I'm disliking this challenge. And many, many times I thought about quitting. So I'm really like, October is rolling around. I'm really on the cusp of quitting, thinking like, this is just a stupid thing that I did. And I don't know why I feel obligated to the internet. I can do whatever I want. And really what I want to do is not do art. And maybe that's what I should have done. Maybe that's how I should end this video. But I was wrestling with these things when my friend reached out to me and said, hey, will you do Inktober with me and some other people? And I said, sure. And some people from work, and we have a Slack channel with our job where people were going to like post their Inktober drawings. And so I agreed to participate. I don't even know why. I felt like I couldn't really say no. And, in a really strange twist of fate, I didn't want to do the Inktober. For, if you don't know, Inktober is that you have to draw in ink every day for the month of October. And there's all these prompts, and I've done it a couple times before, and you can get really involved if you want. But this year I decided that I just wanted to draw dogs, because in a large part, that's kind of a lot of my pencil sketches were just of my dog here. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to keep drawing dogs. And, I'm already drawing for about 5 minutes at the end of my day. I'll just switch from drawing my foot to I'll go online and I'll look up pictures of dogs and I'll just draw a bunch of dogs. And that'll actually kind of be fun for me, maybe. And so this is kind of lesson number 1. If you find yourself in a rut, think about one step that you could take that would make it a little bit more fun without changing everything that you're doing, right? And so I was already drawing and doodling at the end of the day and not loving that, but just thinking about, well, it would kind of be fun to draw dogs. I think that realization helped a lot. Lesson number 2 that really helped me, even though I was theoretically committed in a vague way to doing art every day for a year, having a friend from work say, will you do this with me? And agreeing to do that with a real life person really made me feel, at least for the month of October, like, well, I can't quit now. Maybe I'll quit next month. And so I think finding a reason to keep going, finding a reason why, can also be really helpful. Well, I did Inktober. I made some posts on here, and every day I would draw a dog. I found a free stock photo website and just typed in dog, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of photos of dogs, and they're copyright free, so I felt no compunction about making artistic renderings or whatever. And I would just find a dog, whatever struck my fancy that night, and I would draw it, and it would take 5 to 10 minutes. And I used the same pen. If you've been following my channel for a long time, or you can go back to some of my early videos, I actually started drawing with pen first, or really early on. I was doing a lot of ink, pen and ink, urban sketching, and I really love some of those early pen and ink illustrators. And I just used to draw a lot and sketch a lot with a fountain pen, and that I almost feel like that's kind of my roots with art. And I was doing a lot of drawing before I got into painting and plein air and things like that. I really came from, I discovered urban sketching, and I did a lot of pen and ink urban sketching, and then I discovered watercolor, and then I went into acrylic painting, and then into oil painting, and then I found gouache, and then painting became kind of my true love, and I hardly ever do the ink sketching anymore. And so it was really fun and different and reinvigorating to go back to this thing that I once loved. And I think that is another lesson that I want to share with you, that if you find yourself in a rut, you might try to think of either it could be a new tool or a new technique or a new type of art making that seems like it would just be fun. Or think about what was fun about it, or enjoyable or intriguing, like what hooked you to begin with, and maybe go back and revisit that if you're not doing it anymore. And for me, like, I don't feel like I really want to do ink drawings, but again, it was these other things that led me to it where I thought, what the heck, I'll do ink drawings for a month and I'll draw dogs because that sounds fun. And, I agreed to conceptually do it with some people from work, so there's a little bit of a responsibility there. And so I kind of just slightly tweaked what I was already doing, even though what I was already doing felt like failure to me. So I finished the month of October, and I feel like not much has really changed. I look at, it was fun to have these 30 dogs. I think I might have even done one or two extra. I kind of got into a groove, and I realized that this was kind of there's a subtle difference between a groove and a rut. Okay. And a rut is like you're in a place where you don't want to be and you can't get out. But a groove is like you have momentum in a place that looks a lot more like something that you do want to be in. And I started to realize, like, being able to be consistent with drawing dogs, drawing something fun, and doing, I had the consistency part down. The consistency part wasn't the problem for me. And I think that's one of the big lessons that I learned from that. Consistency may be an issue for you, and maybe you want to tackle that. I think learning how to be consistent is probably the easiest thing to learn. It's literally pick a schedule and stick to it for a set period of time. It doesn't have to be every day. It could be once a week or 3 times a week or every other day. You can figure out what feels right and seems right to you, but you basically pick some sort of schedule, commit to it, and then do it. And all of a sudden, you're on a consistent schedule. So consistency is an aspect, but it wasn't what was challenging me. But I realize now, looking back, I was being consistent, but in something that I didn't want to do. I was being consistent with art that I didn't want to make. And so by tweaking it slightly, by rediscovering the fountain pen, by rediscovering, by kind of just thinking like it would be really fun to draw dogs, I became consistent in something that was enjoyable for me. And that, I think, made a huge, huge difference. So I finished Inktober and I thought, this still isn't really what I want to do. What I really want to do is get back to painting. But I feel like there's all of these, I could make a big list for you. It still applies to me, still this day, of all of the roadblocks and sticking points, the things that make getting painting done difficult. One of the big ones for me is not having a huge amount of time or energy. And I know from talking to a lot of you that that's very common with you as well. I think because I don't have time and energy, I don't have as much time and as much energy as I would like, as I used to have. It also means that my inherent motivation is a lot lower too. I genuinely don't have as much motivation because I don't have as much time and I don't have as much energy. And it's the time and the energy thing is hard to create because, and again, I'm sure this is true for a lot of you, not all, but some. A lot of times your time and energy are down, not because you're wasting time on mindless activities, on scrolling on social media and playing video games. And that is a problem for some people. But genuinely, a lot of people don't have time and energy because all their other time and energy is going to responsibilities, whether that's your family or your work or, whatever is a responsibility. Responsibilities are essentially sacrosanct. You have to get those done. And so then we look at our art practice, provided that it's not your source of employment, as something other than that. And truly, if you feel like you're a creative person, and you are because you wouldn't be watching this, you really should feel a responsibility to making art, even if it doesn't generate income for you, because it's good for your well-being. But if you're anything like me, if it's something like that for you, like this is really nourishing and energizing and it helps me, but it's not on the same level as family and work obligations and responsibilities, then you kind of just mentally say, well, it's not a responsibility. And so I'm not going to do it. And you don't save time and energy for it. So as I'm saying this to you, I kind of realize like this is a change in the way of thinking that I need to make. But I was thinking about the Inktober drawings and I'm thinking to myself, ultimately it was successful. I had a goal, I picked something that I wanted to do, and I kind of just chipped away at it for a month. And you know what's crazy? That's what I intended to do on January 1st. But I lost sight of that somehow throughout the year. And so I thought, how do I take the lessons from this and leverage it into what I really want to do, which is to paint, to finish those big paintings, to do master copies, to do big, plein air trips and all of these things. So, well, let's not change everything 100 degrees and just expect that to work. Let's take what you're already doing, just like I did before, and tweak it just slightly. Incline it towards what you want. So I'm like, you know what? I'm drawing for like 10 minutes every day, and I got my Inktober goal done. What else made that successful? What else made that easy to accomplish? Well, I had a set schedule. I did it at the end of the day before I went to bed. I had the same art material. I was drawing in the sketchbook. I wasn't like trying to figure out what paper should I use and what pen should I use. I used the same paper. I used the same pen. I used the same website. I drew the same subject, and I did it for the same amount of time every day around the same time of night. That made it easy to do. And so I thought, okay, how can I do that but with painting? I'm like, well, I'm drawing for 10 minutes a day. Why don't I try painting for 10 minutes a day? Why don't I chip away at the same painting with the same brushes and the same colors for like 10 minutes a day? And the one tweak that I thought would make that easier was trying to paint early in the day instead of at the end of the day. For a lot of reasons I can't go into, it's very difficult for me to paint at the end of the day than it is for me to paint in the morning or the earlier part of my day. And so that's the one tweak. Take what I'm already doing, but tweak it slightly. Instead of painting at the end of the day, paint at the beginning of the day, and slowly chip away. And I picked one painting that I was doing, and I just did that. I left my brushes out. I had the palette out. I put the paint on the palette, and every day I would paint. I set a timer for 10 minutes, and I would paint for 10 minutes, and then I would be done. And if I felt like going a little bit longer, I would go a little bit longer. And it was not that long before all of a sudden I was painting for an hour. And this is one of the reasons why I found out that for me, painting earlier in the day is better. Because to be honest with you, if I'm doing art at like 10 p.m. at night, I'm not going to be able to go for an hour because I'm tired. And if I push through that, the quality of my art isn't going to be good, and then I'm not going to sleep well, and then I'm going to feel bad the next day, and it spirals. And so there's a lot of like negative ramifications from doing art at the end of the day for me. In my case, might be different for you. But if I do it earlier in the day and I have time, my time can be a little bit more flexible. If I start earlier enough before my employment starts, I'm able to play around with that. And if not, the fact that I had this habit of going like 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, keeping it consistent, it's not really what I want. Like ideally, I would love to be doing plein air every time. That takes a lot more time and a lot more work, as you probably all know. But setting something up in the studio, it wasn't exactly 100% what I wanted to do, but it was one or two more steps in that direction. And I ended up finishing this painting, and I was really happy with the painting. And then I got inspired to start a master copy. And this is a huge master copy. It's really challenging me. It's a painting by Monet. I'm making a video about it right now. I'm learning a lot of lessons. It's really hard. But the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about was how being in this rut and making a couple little tweaks caused me to, even though the Inktober thing it isn't really what I wanted to do, but it was a stepping stone in the direction. And learning the lessons from that helped me continue to course correct. And I think I'm one more step closer to where I want to be. I'm not there yet. My time and motivation and energy levels are still low, but I feel like it got me from going downhill and I started to go back uphill. And to me, that's a really cool place to be. I wanted to share this quote with you from the book Art and Fear. And they have just kind of this little blurb in the book that's called the Operating Manual for Not Quitting. So step 1 is make friends with others who make art and share your in-progress work with each other frequently. And step 2 is learn to think of step 1 rather than the Museum of Modern Art as the destination for your work. Look at it this way. If all goes well, MoMA will eventually come to you. So basically, make friends with other people who make art and share your work in progress with them, and think that that's what your art is for. Your art isn't for galleries, for money, fame, history books, whatever. Just make art, share the work in progress with other artists, and then think about that as the goal rather than just this ancillary thing. And reading that reminded me of why I started this YouTube channel, because you guys are that for me. You are my art friends, and the whole point of the YouTube channel was to learn how to make art and to share it with others. And I feel like we've built slowly a cool community of like-minded people here, and it's always moving and changing because I'm always moving and changing. And so I want to thank you for being a part of this conversation, and I want to look in new ways for you guys to share your art with me. I've been more and more disenchanted with social media, but I needed to read this and to kind of, again, remind myself of why the videos even exist. And it's not, I think sometimes I'm hard on myself that I go, this painting is not that great, this sketch is not that great. The purpose of it, maybe I've lost a little bit of the purpose. But I do think if I don't want to quit, I do think like making friends with others who make art, as it says, and sharing it, your work in progress with them, and thinking about that as the goal instead of some lofty future amorphic thing. I think that actually is a great recipe for success. So hopefully, as I continue to course correct, there will be many, many more works in progress shared with you. And I hope that you will do the same for yourself. And I hope that these lessons and this experience that I've had has been useful to you. So remember, you have a voice that matters. Go be creative. I'll see you next time.